Hello, and welcome to the Project Good podcast. I'm your host, Annmarie Hilton. Project Good is a social impact podcast interviewing experts and advocates about the pressing problems that we face globally and hearing how they suggest we move forward in the future. The Project Good podcast is brought to you by Project Good Work. The goal of this podcast is to inspire people and organizations to develop a mindset that can move others to positive action regarding the complex social issues facing people and the planet. We have a special flash episode featuring the Book Bank Foundation. As of 2025, literacy in the United States presents a complex picture with significant disparities across age groups, regions, and demographics. Overall, the adult literacy rate is approximately 79% of U.S. adults, which means they possess literacy skills sufficient for tasks like comparing and contrasting information or making low-level inferences. Around 21% of adults struggle in the U.S. with basic literacy tasks. This includes 26.5 million adults at level 1 and 8.4 million below level 1, meaning struggling with basic tests on literacy scales. Between 2017 and 2023, the percentage of adults scoring at or below level 1 increased from 19% to 28%, while those at level 3 or above decreased from 48% to 44%. The lowest literacy rates are in California, New York, and Florida. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Glen Toby, who is a globally recognized entrepreneur, wealth advisor, and humanitarian whose life journey exemplifies resilience, reinvention, and purpose. Once a child facing homelessness on the streets of Brooklyn, he has since become a music industry pioneer, trusted advisor to elite athletes and entertainers, and the founder of the Book Bank Foundation, a nationally respected literacy and service organization. As CEO of Glen Toby Enterprises, Dr. Toby leads a dynamic international holding company with investments in real estate, asset management, technology, entertainment, and athlete representation. Over his 30-year career, he has managed and advised an impressive list of clients, including LL Cool J, Lance Reddick, NFL legends Asante Samuel, Antonio Freeman, world champion boxer O'Neal Uvanova Bell, and actor Jason Weaver. Let's get into the interview. Low literacy levels are estimated to cost the U.S. economy up to $2.2 trillion annually due to loss of productivity, increased crime, and higher welfare dependency. Approximately 40% of students nationwide cannot read at a basic level, with nearly 70% of low-income fourth graders falling below this threshold. Over 70% of inmates read below a fourth grade level. America, we are in trouble. The Book Bank Foundation promotes literacy, providing books and literature to underprivileged children and the adult members of communities, and provides resources for combating abuse, hunger, and homelessness. The organization, led by Dr. Glen Toby, has a vision to decrease illiteracy through sound and innovative methods that promote learning, social awareness, and individual prosperity. Dr. Toby's work has been featured in Forbes, the New York Times, and on major media platforms, yet his greatest impact remains rooted in his unwavering commitment to community, literacy, and legacy. Currently serving as a board member for the Peter Topps Foundation, Dr. Toby continues to champion causes that empower future generations. Welcome, Dr. Toby.
Glad to be here today. How are you?
Great. I am very excited to talk about this problem that, I was actually shocked as I was preparing for this interview. I didn't realize that it was so bad. I guess I was it's been a long time since I was in elementary school, and a very long time, I guess, since I first started learning my letters and reading. And I just thought, because we had advanced so much from a technology standpoint in society, that I thought this problem was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But it's actually the opposite. But before we dive into these questions to talk about illiteracy in the US, I always ask each guest a personal question to understand a little bit about how they became the person they are and then also their heart. And so, my question for you is what experience in life made you feel like the person you've always wanted to be in life?
Well, thank you, Annmarie. I'm glad to be here today. I appreciate the great work you're doing. It's your project is going to project hopefully a different perspective on other people. I think these community communications, whether they're done in silos, whether they're done in the office, the home, it's all about community. I appreciate you giving us this platform today.
Yes. And so, so what life experience do you think in through when you look back on all of your experiences in life have made you feel like a moment that you remember that made you feel that, this is who I always wanted to be in life?
Well, I experienced child trauma early. I had come home with my mom and my brother one day, living in New York City, Brooklyn, Crown Heights. And all of our life, we had this amazing life, full of love and everything that you could imagine creativity, spirituality, discipline, and just an abundance. As a single mother with my grandmother there, we had thrived and always had access to the greatest of everything. Education was always at the core of it, whether it was going to the movies, going to museums. But then here's this one day we come home, my mother loses her job, and she'd been struggling with the administration at the time. At her job, she worked in government, public government in New York City, and she came home and the door to our very house was locked. And this is a woman who had unlocked the biggest doors, doors that had virtually no keys to. Every challenge we watched our mother overcome as a leader, not just in our house, but also in the community, doing wonderful things. So being homeless from the age of 8, that went on from 8 until 7th grade. So we had, support of family members, the government agencies, government support systems. But that period of homelessness allowed us to really focus on our studies. We had so much downtime. We'd go to the libraries, we would go to museums. Mother would always make us take notes. She would quiz us and make us do extra work. So education was the foundation of, I guess I would call the cure to the disease of ignorance. Mental illness, it causes illiteracy, causes for a lot of people drug abuse, incarceration, economic disparity. But what I want to say is low literacy rates don't cause crime directly, is what government institutions and polls say, but it does create barriers to opportunity. It increases it increases dropout risk, opens doors to negative influences, especially in underserved communities. So the data points don't always reflect that it's education driven. I mean, moreover, we've seen that people are talking about mental health issues and the change of the nuclear family and many cultural aspect of our society where some of us culturally immune differently in their families. But oftentimes in the inner city, whether it's black, poor white, poor Asian, poor Latino, whoever it is, the person that's experiencing this overwhelming struggle with having food and having a stable place to live, it really has increasingly been growing more than ever because the government's not on the same page with organizations or people that are hands on. They're speaking a totally different language. But for me, what led me down the path to education, what led me down the path to finding resources is I believe that it's a human right that people should have housing, access to education, and safety.
Wow. One of the things I was touched and it made me kind of a little bit tear up. You had an extraordinary mom, I would say, to push through. I guess from that's quite a big time period to go through homelessness, and for her to still push you guys to be the best children and the best people that you can be, even while experiencing all of that, is just like remarkable. I have to just say. Yeah.
Thank you. And she thanks you in her absence too. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's remarkable, and especially to keep it together too, because just as people, we know that when we're under stress, you're not always thinking right, and so for someone to then continue to push like that, that's amazing. And so the other thing that I noticed in your when you were talking, um, is that you talked about how both the government and I guess we'll say the rest of us on the streets are living the life out here. We're not on the same page, and that is something actually that in all of these social impact issues keeps coming up. It seems that I guess the world that we knew and the world that we're going to, or who knows about the future, but what it seems like we're going to go, what we're trying to create with all this technology. I hope it's not going to be like Terminator, although it feels like it. um, uh, that's where it feels like we're heading. It's they're in, I would say, conflict. And then the other thing is when you talked about how families, you grew up in a family. It seems that really they got together, and of course, I'm talking before we had the internet and things like that. So you didn't have the tablet distraction as a child. But now I find that um, you know I even have to fight it in my own family. They have to say, put down the tablet. We're all together. We're here to eat, or something like that. That the human interaction is almost gone. And in some families, I guess you could say it is totally gone. People text each other from being upstairs to downstairs, like, "Oh, do you want the glass of milk or not?" And the person doesn't even come down. They'll just text back, "No," or like, "Not right now. I'll do it in 5 minutes after I get off of my show." But that's where we're going, and so you were talking about how things have changed like that in the world that we are living in. And so then that sets us up, I guess, that I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that the literacy rate is plummeting. I guess from what you've seen, are those the biggest factors? Is the technology, or have you seen something else?
And well, the technology is actually the very thin thread that's keeping the youth, younger people together. The issue is who's ever programming the software, who's ever managing or guiding the algorithm, they can indelibly put in bias, whether it is critical bias, spiritual bias, racial bias, economic bias. It can be programmed into the programming. So if someone has access to something more readily and faster, they're doing less research because they're not studying or reading in the traditional way. They're not, you know, delineating or extrapolating the core value of the messaging because the reading skills or the understanding has been limited because these people are going through this autonomous process of saying, AI brought this to me, the Google brought it to me, the person who issued the narrative, they're trusted because they're in this digital domain. So I think as much as we have access to so much wisdom, sometimes you can be the smartest person in the room that's really being stupid because you're getting all of this data, you're getting all of this information, different narratives. It's issued in different modalities with different experiences. Critical thinking, how to break down and how to read, how to write as well. Reading without writing is a different experience. Writing without reading is different experience. If you're just going with nuance and experience, and you're not checking, using data or cross checking things or collaborating. We're walking around and just enhancing ignorance. Actually, becomes a multiplier of someone that's listening in a very limited manner with their own ideas, and people are they're bouncing influence from the influencers, commercialization, consumerism, concepts, and self-reflection. So it can be dangerous. Sometimes they give us more, and it's too much.
Yeah. So, how do you, I guess, because you are dealing with young people, and young people, they are, I know every generation they say the young people are different. They say that every time there's young people. But now I truly believe they are different because of the influence of the technology. And I even see it like just going to, for instance, a restaurant. Um, it is sometimes if they happen to be a server, it is hard to sometimes communicate, or
Yeah.
or you see, even if you are, working with young people, it's almost like there's a lack of comprehension of language, or there's an intimidation. You can see like there's an anxiety that's building up
Yeah.
if they have to interact with another human. So we've created these people who are essentially scared of people. I would say, if I had to name it, they're like scared of other human beings. The thought of actually talking to someone or being with another human being now leads a lot of these young people to have these issues. And so now, my question then for you is then, since you're dealing with, this kind of, I'll just call it anxiety issue. And when it comes to reading and I always think reading takes imagination, right? For you to want to continue to, um, read the story or whatever you're reading. How do you, I guess, start dealing with these like issues of them not being able to actually understand, I guess, humans? I have no better way to put it right now.
Well put. Well put. I mean, some children don't know what cursive is. Some kids aren't able to physically write, and they're not able to take their ideas from the framework that defines character, their own point of view, or to express what they've learned or they need to learn. And if you take someone that's non-communicative, doesn't have the communication skills, doesn't have the social skills to express, like forget about when it's endearing and you're just having a social, communicable discussion that's in hand. I mean, how does that affect the child? What experience are they having? So if you really look at it, we're talking about what they're not learning in the traditional forms of communication and ways that people express themselves. But one of the other issues, they don't have a lot of positive options. They're facing economic pressure. Many teens and younger people are drawn into local gangs that offer a sense of belonging, quick money through illegal activities, um, that popular opinions that may not be valued, and then oftentimes that creates a presence with police, social services. The overlap generally is because of a lack of academic involvement, or youth are not involved with the core communities such as church, synagogue, whatever it is, the mosque, whatever the places where people go to worship, even in the house, even in the household, the traditional, we talked about this earlier, the traditional nuclear family has changed. And we're, as a result of that, we're having a nuclear explosion in culture, in community, and in curation.
Yes, and one of the biggest things, that I think is well, we know, I guess we see it in the news under fire is education itself, and the schools, and parents feel that they have lost the autonomy that they used to have, or the control over the students. Even the parents are under fire. It's you know, I feel, not to be, I don't want to sound like conspiracy theorists, but I feel there's something awry or brewing. I can't put my hands exactly on it, but it's like we're creating, I guess, robots. I don't know how else to say it, because the thing is, these robots, they can't write their name, right? So, and why this is problematic to me, right? You used to be able to put your name, and so then people knew that that was you for sure, right? But now. majority of students, they don't even know, they can't even read the cursive, right? They can't read it, they can't write it. And so they don't have, I guess you would say, they can't say, oh, this was me. It's like going back to the dark ages and you just like put an X and it just like, and you're just supposed to be like, moving along, like, I'm worker number 0052 or something like that. Like I said, I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but when I look out from the broad perspective, it's like the individuality of the human person is being slowly taken away. I don't know if you've seen that.
No. I mean, you're right. It's not a theory. I think it's factual and actual. I mean, look at ChatGPT, look at all the AI, look at the autonomous cars. I mean, there's no autonomy in many of the people that are supposed to be self-governed. So if you are outside of the body, the mind, the soul, the community, the church, the school, the household, the family, then where's the directive? I mean, who's leading? Are the machines leading us? Are they leading the machines? And if so, are they operating off of substacks of software and people who are writing code from different communities with different ideology? And if you can't communicate well enough and you're not breaking the knowledge down, if you can't understand the data, if you don't know how to source the data, and if you don't know how to pull from the data sets, how is someone going to be able to come to a proper decision? And then when they have challenges, or when data changes, or when the platform changes, or there's ideation in the development of how people communicate and teach, how are we going to have the raw, organic power of creativity and understanding to change the world and to be adaptive using the same systems that were traditionally, forever, right? You talk to that teacher, pen and paper, things went really slow. They weren't changing as much. It took years oftentimes for books to be published and adapted into the school systems. Now, ideas are changed within seconds. How does that affect us? With ADHD and with so many distractions in the digital domain, what are we expecting these kids to hold on to? Not to mention the adults.
Yes, it's a scary mess, to say the least. Um, you know, I guess where did you, let's go back to the Book Bank Foundation. I guess when did you start seeing this as a serious problem?
Well, for me, I had looked back, I had a career and I still am very much involved in sports entertainment. I managed LL Cool J for 4 years, did the show In the House with Quincy Jones, with Charles Fisher and Brian the Tour. And then from there, I went to the National Basketball Association. We did about $300 million in contract business and have such say so in the money that I earned, the money that I spent, and the money that followed me, and it was education. And I would go back to my neighborhood on a regular basis because I was not disconnected. And I'd bring back, items of sneakers, clothing, tickets for concerts, and I wanted to take it to another level. And I wanted something more sustainable. And I sat down one day when I had hit the wall, and I felt like I'd done all I've done in my life, career-wise. I sold these companies. I lived in a 12,500 square foot house, flying private, living the life, but something was missing. There was a void. And I realized that I was driven by fear. My success was driven by me not wanting to fail again, me wanting to always be on the edge or at the precipice of what change would be so that I could be able to have access, money, and be able to help others. But I think philanthropy called me when one of my NFL players on your Jets was doing something, Josh Evans, and of course, Damian Robinson. And we started giving out mildly and gently. And it continued to grow. 50 Cent, the rapper, joined me, and other local celebrities in sports, film, television, and even pioneers in not just music and film and TV, but political leaders, spiritual leaders. And it became so easy for me to canonize. It became so easy for me to ask people to come and do a community give back. And it continued to grow and grow and grow, where the challenge was, how do we give them something sustainable? After they eat the sandwich or wear the coat or put on the shoes that we've given them, they only get, 2 to 3, maybe 4 years out of it. So I had to find something that would be more permanent, more sustainable. And I thought that would be putting together the Book Bank Foundation, which stands for books, obviously education. You have bank, which you have a spiritual bank, an emotional bank, a financial bank, a memory bank, and that's where we hold these things. So I thought with a good heart and a great mind, we put it together and we're able to touch people's souls by being able to share and give and teach the art of giving and the art of receiving.
Now, what has been the most, I guess, amazing or profound change that you've seen your foundation affect?
Hmm. I would say much of what I've been able to reflect on is how a kind act, tolerance, patience, and communication can shift the world. You know, you talk to one person who talks to somebody else, who talks to somebody else, and this collective consciousness that we have continues to grow. It can go from one or two people to even this amazing podcast. Somebody's going to hear us somewhere, and it could touch their heart to take a look at their policy, whether it's personal policy, public policy, or some of the policies that have been issued to them. Some people are open to racial bias when they were young, or racial prejudice, or they're privileged, or they have limitations. Or well, I felt like the more active I remained, it wasn't just my work, it was the information and the awareness that touched someone else to maybe do what I do better or more.
Now, since you've touched so many different types of people, your foundation is not just in Atlanta. I believe Atlanta is where it started. Is that correct?
It actually started in my heart, but it was Mississippi and Atlanta at the same time, whereas most people thought it started in New York, but I was living in New York at the time, majority of the time while traveling. But I'd say Jackson, Mississippi and Atlanta is where it was kind of birthed in spirit. And then the bigger work and the heavier lifting was done in New York City.
Now, I guess, did you, I guess, pick these locations because you knew that these were critical spots, or is it just because these are spaces or places that you hang out in?
Well, it was because I had such influence, managing these major recording artists and these athletes and being able to get the city to listen to me, leaders of all walks, because of sports and entertainment. It gave me the leverage points to be able to come with a measure that says, hey, I will work on a project with you that brings us money. I'll do this broker deal, whether it's negotiating a contract or doing a joint venture. And I would always put the charity right at my heart. And it'd be the first thing I talk about. People would look at it. Some would become enamored with it and continue to stay at Book Bank forever. And some enough just to make a donation or to be reflective about some of the issues and how they can affect it, cause their mistakes or they're hurtful. Karma moves a little bit faster. It seems like it's a lot faster that there's a response or there's an action taken. And I think part of that is because people are more aware and people are more in touch with some of the issues we have, from education to civil rights issues, humanity, and just the core needs of people.
Thank you, Dr. Toby, for your time and insight. To learn more about Dr. Toby and the Book Bank Foundation, go to thebookbankfoundation.org. If you have a passion for an unserved community, a social justice problem, or want to change minds, contact Project Good Work at projectgood.work. Subscribe to our mailing list at projectgood.work/subscribe to get our episodes and blog articles sent to you each month. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Project Good, where we're focused on what matters.